Good day everyone. Again, my name is Rhea Angel A. Mariscal, and today I will be discussing to you the theory of translation analysis according to Vinay and Dalbernet. Way back in the 1950s, two French scholars named Jean-Paul Vinay and Jean Dalbernet explored the linguistic aspect of translation. The field of translation studies didn't really exist at the time, so most of what Vinay and Dalbernet did was considered comparative literature. Vinay and Dalbernet carried out a comparative stylistic analysis to describe translation shifts, though the term shift was first used by John Catford in his A Linguistic Theory of Translation in 1965. This model is developed from taxonomies by proposing detailed lists of the categories for describing small linguistic changes in a specific translation pair. Let's define translation shifts. Translation shifts is a small linguistic changes occurring in translation of ST to TT. So for your information, the language to be translated is called the source language or SL, while the language to be translated into or arrived at is called the target language or TL. So, there are two main translation strategies. First, the direct and the oblique translation. But for now, I will only discuss the direct translation since the oblique translation will be discussed to the other member. So, direct is a source text which focuses on the source text, the exact words of the writer in the text. So, the first strategy is borrowing. Borrowing is the idea of taking the word from the source language and maintaining it in the target language or TL. It is considered the simplest of the procedures and tends to be employed in two situations. First, either when discussing a new technical process for which no terms exist within the target language, or when maintaining a word from SL to stylistic effect, in which the translator uses the foreign term to add flavor to the target text. So, for example, the sanmingzi. In Chinese, it is a sandwich, and when we hear sanmingzi, we are not familiar to that since we are not a Chinese. But when we listen it carefully, we can hear the sandwich or sanmingzi, sandwich, sanmingzi, sandwich. So, as we can listen carefully, there is a little similarities in terms of sounds. So this is the example of borrowing. They borrow the term but the accent is still there. Chinese characters are completely different from English letters, though direct transfer of the source language word is impractical. The SL will normally be changed into fixed Chinese characters with similar pronunciation. The application of this strategy is also a common way to bring new culture factors into native combination. This is a new rising situation in translation studies due to the development of education in countries of target culture and the economic globalization as the prerequisite. For keeping the anonymous genre in some kinds of text, translators should adopt this original translation method to translate words for the achievement of textual equivalence rather than translate these words into target language. Considering the scopus in a translation or in the action of translating for a functionally adequate result, translator adopts absolute foreignization to retain the exotic socio-cultural style in the target text is reasonable. The advantage of borrowing strategy is that it brings an original connotation to the word in target language. Chinese language creates a new word by means of pronunciation. Nevertheless, this method avoids misunderstanding to use other words without full equivalence in Chinese. As the spread and the acceptance of this new word, its signifier in Chinese form will at last acquire the original concept of source language, which is just like the creation of this word and signifier of source language form in the country of source culture. So next, the calque. A calque is when an expression from the source text or ST is transferred literally in the target text. Calque either follow the syntax of the target language while translating each word literally or ignore the syntax of the target language and maintain the syntax of the source language, rendering the calque in an awkward syntactical structure in the target text. Calque is a special kind of borrowing. However, sometimes this translation strategy will cause difficulties in conveying message in the target language. So, example, the translation phrase Jijidwanhu. It is a complement of the season and can be found on the greeting card of China, which is from French. Calque complements de la saison. I think de la saison in France is an actor or an actress. So, because of the culture gaps between China and France, Chinese people will be confused by the odd translation. Why the greeting is for the reason of season? Hardly can people of target culture understand the relationship between season and greeting, considering to the aspect of pragmatics. This strategy fails to achieve the equivalent response in the target text. So again, speaking of pragmatics, pragmatics is the study of language and use. It is the study of meaning, not as generated by the linguistic system, but as conveyed and manipulated by participants in a communicative situation or context. So, the transfer of the expressions of source language in literal way brings about gaps between the coherence and presupposition in pragmatics. So, let's define coherence. Coherence refers to receiver's expectations and experience of the world, and while presupposition refers to the knowledge the sender assumes the receiver to have or which is necessary in order to retrieve the sender's message. So, if the information within the boundary of coherence exceeds that of presupposition, the target reader cannot get the message in the target text, though this strategy is applied by using a literal translation word by word. For example, the first time when the word Kijinyan is a flag worship shop, came out on an advertisement in China, I wondered it was so strange for a shop to sell ship flags in the city center until I recently found the phrase flagship Harrods. It means the main department store of Harrods chains in London. I had not realized that Kijinyan was an odd translation from English, which means the most important shop among the chains. Therefore, using the calque strategy, translator should make sure that the coherence of translation has pragmatical effect in target culture, or translation will fail to deliver the message of source target. One of the advantages of calque strategy is the application to implicature, another concept of pragmatics, which is defined by Baker as what the speaker means or implies rather than what she or he says. The meaning of the implications in the source text may cause difficulties for the translator because the author of the target text is liable to give his real meanings for a special intention by using patterns which seems to be irrelevant. If the translator transfers the expression of source text into another form in the target text, this translation faces the possibility of register change. Hence, keeping the original expression form in literal translation is relatively a safe way. And that's all to this part, and I hope you learned something. Thank you.